Greetings in Christ. This is your 3-minute Psalm devotion for Psalm 60. Psalm 60 is not an easy psalm because it deals with the nation of Israel and the civil government of Israel being attacked by these other countries. And when that happens, you have to interpret it in spiritual ways, as you can see in the psalm, that God is upset with his holy people. Now, it doesn't quite work out that way. We're in the New Testament era. Christ has come. The whole purpose of the civil kingdom of Israel has fulfilled its purpose. Now there's a new kingdom that really matters. It's the kingdom of God, and that's a spiritual kingdom. It's not a political kingdom. So we have to do some translating and moving from a theology of the kingdom of Israel in Old Testament times to a theology of the church in the New Testament times. The church still has enemies. God can afflict the church so that it teeters and totters like we see in our text. And when the church is afflicted with oppression from outside forces, governments that are hostile to the church, from internal pressures like false teachers, and we can see things kind of breaking down, we can pray this psalm. All right, there's a super long subscription to this psalm with some tricky Hebrew names in it. Try to read that 10 times really fast and I'll be very impressed. All right, but I'm going to start with verse 1. O God, you have rejected us, broken our defenses. You have been angry. O restore us. You have made the land to quake. You have torn it open. Repair its breaches, for it totters. You have made your people see hard things. You have given us wine to drink that made us stagger. You have set up a banner for those who fear you, that they may flee to it from the bow, that your beloved ones may be delivered. Give salvation by your right hand and answer us. So that's 1 through 5. And then, starting in verse 7, you hear all these various places, geographical places surrounding Israel, Ephraim, Judah. Those, of course, are people groups in Israel itself, but then you have Moab and Edom and Philistia. These are traditional enemies of Israel. By the end of the psalm, you have this cry of help against the foe. Verse 11, Oh, grant us help against the foe, for vain is the salvation of man. With God we shall do valiantly. It is he who tread down our foes. I think this is a good psalm for today's day and age when we see the church here, for example, in California being threatened by the state, where the state's saying, you need to shut your doors. You are not allowed to sing. And it's all couched in this pleasant sounding words about preventing COVID, as though the government's actually concerned about the physical life of its peoples. For heaven's sakes, they're ripping them out of mothers' wombs at Planned Parenthood. But even so, as bad as things can be here in America with various states, I don't think it's anything compared to what David and faithful Christians have experienced in the past. All right. Now, notice in verse 1 to 3 how bad things are. Luther is careful to point out this is what it's like when there's bad government. Things are chaotic. The land quakes, and I don't think that means physical earthquakes. It's just social chaos, and we're beginning to see that, right? It's kind of frightening and scary. Verse 3, you've made your people see hard things. So Luther describes bad government as those things, and then says, and when God gives good government, wow, how wonderful things are. I want to point one more thing, and then I'll be done here. Verse 4, you have set up, this is David speaking to God, you have set up a banner for those who fear you, that they may flee to it from the bow. The Holy Christian Church, friends, is the banner, where the preached word is preached in its purity and the sacraments administered safely. There's the banner you can flee to in the midst of chaos and trouble and affliction. There you'll find safety and prayers to God and comfort through the forgiveness of sins. And so in our troubling times, flee to the church. Have a blessed day in the Lord.